So my presentation is going to be fairly narrative and talk about the impacts of the MPS Society's research program and try and give both the seasoned and the new members of the Society a sense of the impacts that we're able to effect. I cannot overstate the importance of the Society's research mission, and it's really something I think extraordinary and in some ways unique in the world. These advocacy organizations, I don't know what it is about our cultural heritage, whether what determines it, but they've been examples in many cases to new burgeoning societies. The activities of societies in Australia, England, and the United States have really been a tremendous model for driving research and innovation. And they've started to do it at a time when there was not much to fund in terms of research because there was so little known about these diseases. It kept people in the field, and those people became part of a network, and they became associated with the society in important ways. So my own experience, I started a postdoc as a veterinary medical geneticist. I didn't know what MPS was, and I joined the lab of Mark Haskins and started to learn about lysosomal storage diseases. There is actually an embarrassing moment that Mark likes to tell when I asked him what crab B was, because I was clearly aware of what crab A disease looked like. I hope I've advanced a little bit more than that. My first grant in 2000 was with Mark, and it was awarded by the MPS Society. The MPS Society was instrumental in my getting a postdoc and a faculty position. From that, I've gone on to both have impacts on gene therapy programs. The Paris gene therapy program, for example, the foundation of that was work done in the dog model, and the dog model exists because of the National MPS Society. Work on, with Patty Dixon, with the MPS 1 dog model was instrumental in telling us a lot about these early therapies and the benefits of it. When we start treating dogs from birth at triple the dose, they have no valvular heart disease, not just clinically, but when we look at the heart valves under a microscope. We just completed a 5-year study with BioMarin on tralosinylidase alpha, the enzyme therapy for MPS 3B. And I am just one person working in the MPS space. If you go through and you review all the grants from 2001, I encourage you to do it, you will find groups funded in Australia, in Italy, in the United States, in industry, from private research institutions, and from universities. And you will find people funded at all stages along their career. And these are really important funding resources. What the society will fund doesn't get picked up by other groups. Either there isn't enough preliminary data, we actually need these as seed funding resources, or it's an area that is not yet a priority for the larger funding organizations like the NIH. Perusing some of the information, similar to what I brought up today in terms of the clinical trials, the MPS 6 clinical trial, I'm sorry, I hit that inadvertently. The MPS 6 clinical trial in Italy absolutely has its history with the MPS Society. The hematopoietic stem cell transduction for Hurler syndrome being conducted in Italy absolutely has its foundations in the MPS Society. What you guys are able to do has incredibly important impacts. And you reach out and you feed a network of researchers that it really is quite impressive. I work with Patty Dixon and have for the last 15 years. Patty Dixon's mentor was Emil Kakis, and his mentor was Liz Neufeld. My mentor was Mark Haskins. We all have had an incredibly intertwined professional relationship. And I think that's also because of the society and the way the society is structured and the involvement of families. I can remember the first time I went to Los Angeles for a conference at one of the socials. A San Filippo mother came up and introduced me to her child. That was huge. That was a really big impact for me, as someone who doesn't normally work with families. I'm not an MD. I work with veterinary patients. So you're being front and center as part of the research endeavor and as part of the research community. That keeps us all working towards a common goal. I can call up any one of the scientific advisory board members or email them and ask for their assistance, and without doubt, they will say absolutely, or I'd love to, but I just don't have the time, I need further notice. Never will they push off and say, I'm not interested. They're passionately interested in collaborating and moving the ball forward for all of us and for all of you. And a lot of that comes from this resource that feeds into the research enterprise at every year and in important ways. It keeps people in the field, it keeps people surviving, it keeps people innovating. It brings new people into the field as well. I could go on, but I think I've hit all the high points that I wanted to. It's an incredibly valuable program, and you guys should all be deeply, deeply proud of it. I didn't tally up the numbers, but it's definitely in the millions. What's the total towards research that we've contributed? 10.7 million. That's an impressive amount of money. And so many of those companies that are getting therapies on board or things that have been presented, integrally involved in the history of MPS research, supported by the Society.